Okay.
I just wanted to give out a quick intro of Berkovits,
Yes.
if I may. You guys remember this wheel? You see the wheel? The famous Aish core values wheel?
Yeah.
So our goal is to take this off the wheel, which is like one of those inspiring cat posters on the wall that really don't do anything for us. And we understand that the Aish core values, which are really, of course, Torah values, for them to really resonate, we need to really work on living with them. And I think that the key thing is that they're not just for the organization, they're for us, for our personal lives. And to the extent that we really live with them and they're real with us, to that extent, they'll trickle down and affect our Avodas Hashem, everything we're doing with our branch, with our Kiruv work. So the goal of this whole series is really to wrestle with these values and try and make them real in our own lives. I want to thank Rabbi Berkovits for taking the time out. And the format is Rabbi Berkovits is going to give a 30-minute share, followed by a short Q&A. He has the questions. There are about 8 really good questions, and I think it'll take it the whole time. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Nehemiah, for arranging the whole thing and for pushing it. I was a bit skeptical. I think it's great. If we talk about being real, we have to begin with being real with life. What do we live for? And are we real with that? Do we have a clear sense of what the Mesilas Yesharim is telling us in the very beginning about the goal in life and understanding that everything else is a means, and if the means fit the goal, they belong there, and if not, they don't. Most of humanity is not really living for real. People set arbitrary or artificial goals. Others don't even do that. Others want to be cool. They're playing. So much of humanity is playing. And I can't say that necessarily every observant Jew is not playing either. We just have different games. The very first thing we've got to do is understand this is real. This is real. We were created Lisanig al Hashem. We were created to be Mizdabek b'Hashem. Hashem was Ritzoni Yisbarach Lahativ, created this world to give. Told us that this is the way he gives. And that anything other than that is a very poor replacement for it. As Mesilas Yesharim himself points out, any other goal one has in life is just so full of disappointments. So many things we find ourselves dealing with that we really don't want to. So much of life, for most people, is just so miserable. The goal is Lisanig al Hashem. And of course there are challenges, but there's a Kiruv Elokim Litov, there's nothing like it. So first, let's just begin with that. We got to know this is real. We have real goals. We have a real responsibility. I always point out, the Mesilas Yesharim is talking about your chiyuv. Lisanig al Hashem is not an elective; it's a chiyuv. Rav Noach spoke of it as your definition. Your definition is a pleasure seeker. Any way you look at it, what it says here is that it's not an elective. Whether it's our nature, whether it's because there's a commander, someone commanded us. But Lisanig al Hashem is something we've got to do. So that has to be the psicha to everything. Unless you understand there's a creator who created us for a purpose, and there is no replacement, there's no alternative to fulfilling that purpose, then nothing's real. Then everything's a game. Then everyone can come up with whatever philosophy they want or set goals for themselves in any way they want to. So that's out of the way. It's got to be very, very clear. Okay, so now we begin. Yeah, we mizdamik b'Hashem, lisanig al Hashem, feeling close to Hashem. The most basic thing we've got to do is be mekadesh Hashem in this world. Everything is for kfod shemayim. Everything is for kfod shemayim. So the Chofetz Chaim in his Chemes Hadas Now points out right away. He brings the medrash v'yarkenish. Brings the medrash over there that Hashem asked, how could it be? This is after the Plishtim captured the Aron. How could it be? If your hen ran away. Someone's hen ran away. Turn to gold to Sholech. You go looking for it. Every little thing, what it bothers us. We invest in things. If your hen ran away, it would bother you. The Aron is by the Plishtim. And no one cares. Everyone's going around there, going about their daily business. Aron biyad Plishtim, that was terrible. The vast majority of Klal Yisrael is biyad Plishtim. The vast majority of Klal Yisrael doesn't know it was created. First thing is got to bother us. Got to bother us. Rav Noach would always quote the Rosh. It says, Sifin Shulchan Aruch, be meitzar, to feel the pain, v'doyeg, and worry what's going to be. Doyeg means to think. Doyeg means to look for solutions. If you call yourself a Yorei Elokim, that means you take Hashem seriously. Be meitzar, you have to care. You have to want to do something. That's the very first thing. If everything is about Kvod Shamayim, the greatest Chilul Hashem, without question, is the fact that most Jews know nothing. People speak of them rejecting. They don't know what they're rejecting. They know nothing. They know nothing. It's the very first thing. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh. I said this years ago at Aish. I still think the Cheshbon is right. We're not. Because we have greater responsibility for what they're not doing than they do. Because they're Tanoi Kishanishbu. But our responsibility for them, we're not Tanoi Kishanishbu. We are more responsible for their Averis. We are more responsible for their not being Makayim mitzvahs than they are. What does Kol Yisrael B'Arei anyway mean? What does it mean? It means that the nation was Makabel Torah Miksha Achas, as a nation, not as a Yochid. As a nation, no one has the right to say, I'm gonna grow, be a tzaddik, I'm gonna go be a great Talmid Chacham myself and forget about everybody else. It's only as a nation. The Kabbalah says are including the Arvis, and the Arvis for the Arvis. My mitzvah is not sholem. My learning isn't sholem. Avodas Hashem, my Yir Shamayim is not sholem. Or the Yidden that don't have it. If there's anything I can do about it. Above all, and this is really in answer to that question, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Has it ever been done before? Sitting in a meeting with the Wolfson clan, and I was trying to put in a plea for broadening the focus and thinking of the whole klal. So one of the members of the class said, has this ever been done before? Why was Tanakh written for us? Why is the Nevi'im, the history of Bayis Rishon, why was it written for us? As a history book. It's alive. It's alive. It's telling us what can be done, what has to be done, what shouldn't be done. Learn from the mistakes of others. Yoshio brought back all of Klal Yisrael. Chizkiyo got everybody to learn. He turned the whole Klal Yisrael into Talmidei Chachamim. Bad Kumidon, Bad Bered Sheva. There wasn't a Ish v'Isha. They didn't know all the halachas of Taris. So this person, you think you're Yoshio? You think you're Yoshio? So what, we read it to know that there was a great Jew named Yoshio? What's it there for? So the Yerushalmi, Chavetz Chaim makes a whole thing of it. The Yerushalmi gives the whole story of what happened to Yoshio. Yeshua ben Aman, he was brought up lahachis, without any education. He knew nothing. He didn't know a pasuk chumash. His father was a king who was machti. He brought his son up bedafka not to know a pasuk chumash. He finds, they were machazik the Beis Hamikdash. He finds a Sefer Torah. Finds a Sefer. He never saw this before. He starts reading. And he gets to the parsha of Or Ashalo Yokim is Divrei Torah. Or Ashalo Yokim. Or Ashalo Yokim. And he stops and he says, Olai lo Hokim. Zol Gwein of Demos. He starts crying. Olai lo Hokim. Obviously, he was the Melech. So Chavetz Chaim writes, in those days it was the Melech. Today it's anybody. Today it's anybody. And Chavetz Chaim wrote that at a time, you think that when Reb Noah started out, they thought he was a Meshuggah. In the days of the Chavetz Chaim, when the Haskalah was at its peak, for him to say that anybody can get out there and do it. All right, he had a reputation of being the Chavetz Chaim, but I'm sure there are plenty of people that said, he's a tzaddik, he's a tamim, what does he know? He's the Gadol Hador, but he's a tamim, the Chavetz Chaim is a tzaddik, he's a tzaddik. Oh, he was so much smarter than all of us. It's doable. Today, it's got to be doable. There's a haftocha before the Gula comes, haftocha in the pasuk, that Hashem is going to bring everybody back. Who is that referring to? So we got a good question. He's going to bring back anybody that is technically Jewish, or a person has to have some level of Jewish identity. Who knows how many real Jews there are in the world, meaning in terms of genealogy, of all the people we lost over the generations? Who knows? The tiny half of Spain is Jewish. Who knows? Is that included? It doesn't seem that anybody holds that. All right, the probably the most the most clear and shocking one is the Meiri, where he talks of 4 generations that didn't identify Jewish, that their bodies are not metama b'meis anymore, are not metama b'oil anymore. They lose their Shem Adam, they lose the Shem Yisrael, and he's talking about midaraisa. That the Rabbanon talk about an Apikoris or Chal Shabbos Fresi, that he doesn't have a Shem Yisrael. That's the Rabbanon. We know it's the Rabbanon. Midaraisa, they're Jewish. He says that midaraisa, they're not. Who knows? At least you have to identify Jewish. Some basic emunah. Whether it's so that there'll be more people saved when the Rabban Shalom miraculously brings everyone back, or like in every other case, that the Rabban Shalom is waiting for Nisarusa V'Lasata, where he's waiting for someone to do it down here. Tell me, when Yeshiyahu Melech Yehuda brought everybody back, it wasn't Siyata Dishmai. He was Yeshiyahu, but it wasn't Siyata Dishmai. But Kiruv today, even in the numbers that it's not Siyata Dishmai. Or as Rav Noach would put it, anything's without Siyata Dishmai. What happened? What are we Apikarsi? Oh, is it doable? So, a lot of the questions we're dealing with, the doability of it. I think I'm already going to have to jump into the issues themselves. Western society was turned liberal. Extreme, fanatical liberal. Crazy. Insane. It didn't just happen. This was premeditated. This was carefully planned. It was carefully planned by a small group of people that had worked out to a T. And they followed their script. And it worked. Steve says he's got one of those guys. This is one of the people involved there. He's got one of them. No, so first of all, we have to do something. We have to do something to get Jews to start thinking differently. Second, aside from just this issue of changing attitudes, we have to get people learning. Rabbi Noah was always talking about a grassroots revolution. What it means is the in thing is to learn. If you don't learn, you're just not with it. How are we going to do it? See, here's the next issue. You know, nobody, absolutely nobody invests money, meaningful money, in anything today without doing proper research. Nobody just takes an idea and says, well, let's try this. Let's try that. A couple of million for this and a couple of million for that. No one works like that. Nobody does it. Yes, we're talking about something that hasn't been done for a long, long time. True. That's true. We also know, that all of us got our ideas of what works and what doesn't work on the basis of what Rabbi Noah created, which was created for a specific generation and a type of person. What we got to do is we got to know what works today. Whether it's a matter of packaging, whether it's a matter of strategy, whether it's a matter of content. If we care, come on, this is it. This is going to make the greatest difference to mankind, to Klal Yisrael, to Great Shemayim. We got to do it. We got to do it the executive way. We got to do it the way professionals do things. We got to invest in research. We have to try things. We have to study. We have to meet with people that have done this. We have ideas. Experiment. Do prototypes. Rabbi Noah would always speak about the branches. To him, an essential purpose of the branches was for R&D, testing ground for the ideas that were coming up in Yerushalayim. I think this has to be done professionally. There's no shaila, it has to be. It has to be done professionally. But professionally, not by hiring some strange organization that knows nothing about Kiruv, is recreating the wheel to begin with. It's got to be done professionally with professionals that will work with us and that understand us and know what it's about. This is what we've got to do. Everything's siyanta d'shmaya, but you got to be serious. You got to be serious. If you don't make a serious hishtadlis, then you're a pasheya. There is no guarantee of siyanta d'shmaya for pashim. But we're fools. Once again, going back to the Chavetz Chaim, to the Chazal, the Arkei Nish. What were you going to deal with this in a different way than people deal with their businesses? We're going to invest less in this, less time. We'll do it less professionally than what people do for all their narishkeit. It's got to be done properly. It has to be thought through. We've got to get people that are willing to invest. And I think it's insane. You got people pouring millions of dollars into Kiruv and they never bother doing research. I don't get it. Will they ever do that with their business? It just doesn't make sense. It's obviously the Sitra. It's probably the Sutton that's doing that. We've got to crack this. The question is this the achrayus of the Yochid? Alai lo hakim. Alai lo hakim. Yes, we all have the responsibility. What is our responsibility? To be meitzer v'doig. To be pained by it. To be pained by it and to feel, to walk around with the feeling of being troubled. I've got to look for solutions. That's what we have to do. That's the chiyuv. And it's pashit. It's pashit. Well, maybe when we have to deal with a few. I say this all the time. There are allowed to be different shitas in Klal Yisrael, but there can't be hypocrisy. People can't tell us that there's no chiyuv to save every Jew, and then tell us that we have a chiyuv to be makar of their son or nephew who's off the derech. The only reason they don't think that way about the other kids is because they don't feel that they're children. They're the Rebbeinu Shalom's children. That doesn't mean anything to you. You won't be mavater cholila, be mavater on a child. Yeah, save a couple. Yeah, all right. And it's clear. It's clear. We have to think of a way of doing this. We have to think of a way of doing it. Because if it can be done, we've got to do it. And when the Gemara in Shabbos tells us, the sugya there of the people of the Reish Galusa, where the Gemara then says about the story in what Yecheskel's Nevuah there, what Yecheskel's talking about, where the tzaddikim were punished first before the Rishonim. They're Makayim everything from Al-Vav Tov, and the Rishonim were Makayim nothing, did a very Aveira. Why? Because they didn't give Techach. But they didn't think it would work. And the Midas Adin says, Hashem, you knew Taka wouldn't work. How are they so sure? How did they know it wouldn't work? Did they try? We're so sure of ourselves that it can't be done. Like all these characters that are walking around telling us that it's clear that they can't be absolute truth. They're so sure of themselves. Kant was the one that said it, which is a built-in steer. The only thing we know for sure is that we can't know anything for sure. So how do you know that for sure? They're so sure of themselves. We're so sure of ourselves. Someone's tried something. We worked through a plan and it failed, and the only explanation was that it can't be done. How are we going to get away with this? Got to be clear. In the olden days, Rav Noach used to say we have to feel fortunate that we are among those who care. We're into Kiruv. There are a lot more people into Kiruv today. We're still alone. We're still alone. We're among the select few who care about all of Klal Yisrael, who haven't given up. Who haven't given up before they started. And understand that we have a chiyuv to be doyeg u'meitzer. Are we going to be able to convince others? Maybe, maybe not. But as Rav Noach said, it was so true. If we start seeing some success, they won't only join us, they'll take over and they'll take full credit for the idea and for the lamaisa. That'll be wonderful. No, right now our first objective is to really get together and work through possible strategies. Have them tested. The strategies have to be not just theory, but a lot of them based on experiences, things we've seen. You've got to evaluate clearly. Do different people, different age groups, different cultures, who responds to the experiential, who responds to something practical, who responds to something traditional. There are those people too, believe it or not. Is a class ever going to work? Or is their attention span too short? Perhaps the different age groups are different. Who knows? And of course, how do we change the way people think? We got to learn from the people who went and brought insanity to all of Western society. We got to work through this. We've got to undertake it. And we've got to get enough people on board to pay for it. And by the way, they always talk of research being expensive. It is nothing. It is small money compared to the amount of money that is being thrown into Kiruv. So much money is being put into inefficient Kiruv. I just don't get it. Millions are being spent to put couples on campuses, to send a handful of kids to yeshiva. So now it's become obvious, in order for that to really make a major dent and reach lots of kids, you need lots of resources and lots of manpower. The resources, maybe they'll get it. Maybe they'll get it. The manpower, we have a while to go. We have a while to go. Quality manpower is not so easy to get. It's so inefficient. It's so inefficient. We got to think big. We got to get people to understand that and be willing to invest in it. All right. I think the message, I hope the message got across. Let me run through the questions. I find the idea that I'm personally responsible to bring back the entire Jewish people completely overwhelming. It doesn't motivate me, it paralyzes me. How am I realistically supposed to incorporate this value into my life? Yeah, there's an old shaila. What motivates people most? To tell them they have a responsibility or to tell people that they have an opportunity? It's a matter of phraseology and it depends on your sharash and neshama. A Yerei Shamayim should come alive when he hears responsibility. Real Yerei Shamayim is not so common today. And most people don't like the word responsibility, especially when you dump on them some major responsibility. But if you can understand that this is what Hashem put us here for in this generation, and it's our opportunity. If we pass it up, more than anyone else, we're the ones that are going to be missing it. Don't miss this opportunity. Don't miss this opportunity. If responsibility doesn't speak to you, then get excited over the opportunity. Hear the music. Feel it. It's coming. It's beginning now. It's going to happen. Number 2, is there a source to bring back the entire Jewish people versus focusing Kiruv evidence and significantly smaller? What is the source to focusing on significantly smaller remnant? What's the source? I mean, why is there a source only for specific people, not a source for the rest of Klal Yisrael? Make a selectia. On what basis? On what's easier? On what's easier? That's the way we decide? We only do easy mitzvahs? Ramnal clearly held that one must devise a plan which can at least reasonably return every Jew to Hashem. Is this a svar? Is it based upon sources? Why don't others hold that way? Is it because they don't find such grand plans to be reasonable? They just do not believe that is a responsibility. They believe we've lost them already. They don't believe that it's doable, which is exactly what they believed when Reb Noach started altogether. When they called him a Meshuggah, the biggest of them, when they called him a Meshuggah, it's the same thing. It hasn't changed. So now they say, okay, it can be done in small numbers. That was, that was an accomplishment. They now believe it could be done in small numbers. They didn't think so in the beginning. Agav, the small numbers are not so small compared to the whole of Kol Yisrael. This small. Do we really know that we can bring back all the Jewish people? That it's worth trying, but no guarantees. This Hashem promised it's going to happen. We've got to do ours. He'll do the rest. He'll do everything. But we've got to do ours. And once again, it's not called a hishtadlis if it doesn't make sense. It's not called a hishtadlis if you don't do it the way you would do your business. What are the makaras for? The pasuk says. The pasuk says. We read it in the summer. Maybe everyone's on vacation when they land. Hashem says He's going to bring us back. If it's the latter, why is it more reasonable to say, let's save as many individuals for full Shemar Shabbos, just the Amunah for the masses, basically calling Amunah for the masses? Amunah is a beginning. Of course, we have a responsibility for everything. But the first thing is Amunah. The first thing is Amunah. It's interesting, Moshe Shapiro, who was the Rav of the Wolfsons all the years, would say openly, he had his Kedarko and his Torah Tziva Lana Moshe, the Gemara says, is Tov Reish Yud Aleph, Zanechi Elohiyah Mipi Agvur Shamam. See, we go further. Moshe Rabbeinu only gave us 611 mitzvahs. The other two were not from Moshe Rabbeinu, they were from before him. See, he said, it's not just Mipi Agvur Shamam. Anochi and Layir were the mitzvahs that Avraham Avinu brought into the world. He brought Emunah. And he learned Pshat that when it says, V'heyei brocha, V'chayu chaysmin, he said the end of Golus is going to be V'cha, with Emunah. With Avraham Avinu's mitzvahs. Anochi and Layir. That's what he said. I don't know where they heard otherwise, but that was his shita. What he didn't like, and that's something else, he didn't like bringing people back to fluff. He said everything you teach has to be authentic, which Agav, so did Reb Noach. Reb Noach was not into fluff. Everything he taught was tough and was being mechayev. He found a way to package it that people can listen to and laugh at themselves. But it was never fluff. His Mahalach and Mesilas Yesharim is no fluff. People that don't understand think it's fluff. Yeah, the pleasure principle. You make up shtiyot to get people to buy into it. It wasn't fluff. It was very real. And that we have to be true to. As far as Emunah, that's the Aleph Beis. That's the Aleph Beis. I mean, this essentially is the old machlokes between the Kiruv movement and Chabad. Chabad believes that every Jew has Emunah anyway, and all you got to do is get him to do mitzvahs. And we believe that maybe deep down they've got it. But if you don't make them aminim, then the Rambam says the mitzvahs are not mitzvahs. It's got to start. The basis for everything is Emunah. And by the way, Emunah is not just Emunah in Hashem. It is very clear it's got to be Emunah in Torah Messina. And it's got to come with some degree of observance, at least learning and beginning to keep something, or else it's not going to last, and we'll have to start over again for their children if Mashiach doesn't come before that. there's a movement for something really Jewish. And then we also have to be careful that we're not creating a new stream of Judaism. Where you can keep the difference between the Kiruv statement that it's not all or nothing and conservative Judaism is that we believe that there are Tariq mitzvahs, but that you get schar for every mitzvah you do. But there are Tariq mitzvahs. There's no option of we have, no, they're not really all noyeg, not just kachim, kashrus, taras mishpocha, it's not for us, bisman. No, we don't believe in that. But we do believe that it's a growth process and that any effort you make is not for, that's what we're telling. Unfortunately, I'm familiar with many Aish rabbis whose children ended up going off the derech. How to balance the responsibility we have towards our family in regard to our responsibilities to the klal? Is there a common denominator we can learn from these families? I don't think this was amply researched. I really don't know. I really, really don't know. There is obviously, when you're living in the middle of nowhere, that presents challenges. At the same time, being the greatest Talmud Chacham in your area also means a lot to your kids. There's a lot of respect. It's very hard to know. I don't know if this is a case-by-case thing. I don't know if this is something that is really societal. It's very difficult to know. And what about all the kids going off the derech in Yerushalayim? What about that? Unfortunately, the statistics of Noshrim are so high. It's very, very high. The kasha we have is that Aish Makarvim shouldn't have this problem. Because a lot of what's going on and people going off the derech is because the kids grow up with no emunah. Hashem is not part of their lives. They just become part of a society where this is what's this is the done thing. The done thing is to learn. No. There's no real relationship with Hashem. There's no real understanding, no real meaning. They're certainly not on fire with anything. And they lose it. Growing up in an Aish home, that's a kasha. The statistics should be a lot lower. It's hard to know. We can make up our svaras, but once again, without research, there's no way of knowing it. In this day and age, we do things scientifically. I'm sure people have done studies. Question is what they took into consideration. I heard someone suggest, well, maybe it's the Aish personality that the kids have where they're busy rebelling. Who knows?
Can Rabbi Berkovits address the issue about balancing responsibility we have to the klal with our family?
Yes. Anyone who can feel that the klal is more important than his family, something's wrong. Something's wrong. It's obvious that our first responsibility is to our families. The Torah was never mechayev us to go to work to support everybody else's kids, but we are chayev to go to work to support our own families. If you don't feel responsibility for your own family, then how honest can you be about feeling responsible for everybody else? It's a real kasha there. I find it hard to believe that people don't feel responsible for their families. I've heard such statements from some. I wonder if that's really true. I find it hard to believe. Come on, there's at least a human element. Your kids, aren't they? We have to work on feeling that everybody's our brothers. Our own children. Our own children. It just has to be done wisely. You have to make sure that you have a close relationship with every one of your kids, a personal relationship, a unique relationship with every one of your kids. You don't have to be there all the time. They probably wouldn't want you on their backs all the time. But you've got to be involved. You've got to be involved. You've got to know what's going on. And you have to have a personal relationship with every one of them. They have to feel, every single one has to feel a special relationship with you. And you do have to make time for your kids. How much? When? You have to work it through. But I mean, who thinks that chinuch means sit on with your kids all the time? Is that what they want? Is that what they want? Is that what's good for them? You have to do whatever it takes to establish a personal relationship with them. Things that you do with this kid, you do with that kid. Sometimes it's even time that doesn't cost you anything. Like there's one kid that you go weekly shopping, you go to a certain place and you take them with you. If you think there's a kid that would enjoy one of your programs or all of your kids, would you bring them along? If you think it's good for them. Then of course, young kids, you got to read to, got to talk to. Your Shabbos table cannot be open to the public all the time. You have to have time with your kids. Hopefully they enjoy the guests. It's fun. It's interesting. But it can't be for the whole world and not family time ever. At least one Suda on Shabbos, or at least one Shabbos every so often. No, you can't neglect your families. You can't go tell your kids Klal Yisrael is more important than you are. You can't tell them that. Chalila. They know you're busy. They know you're busy doing good things, but you have to have a relationship with them. It may be a good idea. Maybe a good idea to have some kind of series on chinuch for Kiruv families. Certainly for the younger ones, where their families are just growing up. Maybe a good idea to have some kind of series on it. Okay, 5. If the goal really is to reach the entire Jewish people, does not require seeing ourselves more as a movement encouraging innovation and not an organization running with the same modus operandi we have had for years. Yes, absolutely. Now the example here should be thinking how to create 10 new programs next year that will reach thousands, not just increase achievement by 10% next year. Even that, the business of 10 new programs, I know we're very much into these arbitrary numbers that we set up. Again, we have to research things, I believe. We have to put together some of our more creative people. There's a lot of creativity in you out there. We definitely have to put together, make use of people that have had experience, people that have made programs, have created stuff, people that are naturally creative. We have to work together. I am telling you, it is doable. We just have to get together and do it, not just talk about it. Given we have limited resources, both time and money, which is the bigger Chol Hashem, 90% of Jews not knowing Hashem and mission of Jewish people, we're dysfunctional from people. How do we allocate our resources of outreach versus in-reach? The problem of in-reach is not money. The problem of in-reach is educating the educators. The problem of in-reach is if you work outside the system, you're not Berkovits. And I don't just mean they'll call you that, but you're a rebel and it's not good. You're fighting against Klal Yisrael. You work within the system, you're up against a lot. It's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. You write a book on Emunah, you can be sure someone else will come out with another book that's knocking you, right? And get everyone's haskamas, including the people that are behind you. That's the way it works. You got to work inside the system, beneath the radar, little things, but a lot of chachma. You got to be a special kind of person to be able to do that. It's not so pashut. It's really not so pashut. I asked Rav Noach this question many times. I'm sure many of you did too. And I'm sure we all got the same answer. He said the only way we'll ever be able to make a major change in Klal Yisrael, in the Frum Welt, is if we get them to do Kiruv. And Chaim, I'm sure you see this all the time. In the name of Kiruv, Frum people become Aminim. In the name of Kiruv, they become Amin. With the amount of intermarriage going on, at what point are we supposed to say, well, it seems that this type of thinking was off as millions have been lost already? Maybe Wilson's right, we just need to get X number per year from. What is the logic of that question? The question is, should we give up? No. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, there is one thing that does bother me very much in hindsight. And that is, now there's the sense of urgency is more than ever before. That sense of urgency, on the one hand, was the only thing that really motivated us to do anything. On the other hand, I don't think we really gave it ample, again, I'm using the word research, in really developing things because we were in such a hurry. I think what we should have done was have two tracks going on. Continue to do everything we're doing, build whatever we're doing, and at the same time, and the truth is, Noah did push for it, but I think the second part was too theoretical. You got to worry about all of Klal Yisrael. That didn't mean anything in dollars and cents. It didn't mean anything lamaisa. He would quote Reb Chaim Shmulevitz that anyone that doesn't lose a one night's sleep a year thinking about Klal Yisrael is an achzer. I think that had we actually gotten together to do something over the years, really do research and try to work things out, maybe we would have been somewhere today. At the same time, I don't know. I think all of us, including everyone that claims to be burnt out, I think there's a certain amount of sophistication that we've developed better than the way we started out. We started out as a mom and pop operation. We started out as a bunch of mavericks trying things out. And Baruch Hashem, we grew over the years. And although, in most cases, certainly not all, far from all, let me say in many cases, the history was brighter than where we are today. We still have learned a lot and are therefore in a much better position, I believe, to really work together and come up with a complete, comprehensive strategy of today really shooting and making this our number one goal. Our number one goal, especially since there are people out there making Shomer Shabbos, and there's plenty of money out there for that. Our number one goal, like Aish should undertake this as its number one goal, not just worrying about it when you go to sleep, but being actively involved in changing the attitudes of all of Klal Yisrael. When it comes to responsibility, how much can I do it myself, and how much can I delegate and or hire others to do? This is a very, very local kind of question. The answer to it is we got to be as strategic as possible. You got to do what's best. You really have to do what's best. If getting personally involved will do more, but only short term and long term, it's not going to work. And you should really be spending your efforts on whether it's planning, managing, whatever it is, and you do better at that, then do that. And let someone else, do the day-to-day.
What you do?
Be on top of him. That's really the case.
What I really did, I said over here.
In every situation, everyone's really got to decide, what's going to do best. What's going to do best for clients. All right, it sounds like, or looks like there were more things that people wanted to discuss, or some of the previous things that people wanted to further discuss.
Where?
Are you muted? I'm not hearing you.
Yes. Where is the source of Alayla Hakim from the Chofetz Chaim? Where would I find that?
Chomes Hadas. His Akdama, the Chomes Hadas is a 4-part essay dealing with the Chiyuv of Kiruv. One of them is Alayla Hakim.
Okay.
He has 4 parts. I left out the fourth. I left out the one of them, which is Ben Adam Lachavero. I always used to talk about that, and Reb Noach liked pushing that a little bit to the side.
With the Ben Adam Lachavero.
Meaning, the way the Chavetz Chaim puts it, the Torah says you have to worry about it. You know, the guy's donkey is collapsing. You got to worry about it. The fact that the guy is not going to have Olam Haba doesn't bother you. The fact that the guy doesn't know that why he gets up in the morning doesn't bother you. Yeah, as a simple Ben Adam L'Chaver, I mean, people don't know what they're doing. Just to care about people. To care about people. What was it? The Alter from Kel, was it? Or the Alter from Slobodka, who used to say, though, why did Yosef make all the Egyptians do Mila? He wanted them to have some shaykhs for Ruchnis. Listen, he was giving them food. He wasn't going to give them some darga and Ruchnis. So what did he do? At least Mila, at least, break the Yitzchak a little bit. Could you imagine? As a Ben Allah Chaver, he said, if you feel that you're feeding people, you develop a feeling for them. He had Rahmanis, they have no Ruchnis. The Chavetz Chaim says, the Shlosh says, the Kavachon for Saman al Damriyecha. And that Reb Noach did say, more important than his life is his Olam Haba. The Chavetz Chaim brings these 4 things. It's Kvod Shamayim, Kol Yishol HaRedim Zelazeh, Alai Lo Hakim, and Ben Adam L'Chaver. Those are the 4 reasons. And not in the Sefer, but the Chavetz Chaim was known to have told all the Rabbanim that if they don't give at least 1 day a month to try and be makar of people in the city next door, Lo Yinokem Medina Shel Gehem. That was his news.
Wow.
And nobody was doing Kiruv. Now, who did Kiruv then? Everything was still going in the other direction.
Wow.
Can I ask a question? The Rav said before that there has to be much more R&D, there has to be investment and of time. All the Mekarvim who are out there, whether they're capable or not, feel that they're achrayas and have to be on the ground and they have to be with the people. If it really takes time and so much investment of time and effort, who is supposed to be doing this R&D? It's time. If Aish, from what I understand, in the 90s, Aish had an R&D department, and there may have been people who were dedicated to this. Pashtus, it takes somebody dedicated to it to say, do R&D. It takes a lot of research. If you're talking about the way companies do it, it takes a lot of money and a lot of time, and it takes experts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's going to be a need for the participation of everybody. Not that they're doing the full-time. They're professional research teams. I was actually introduced to somebody that can be an ideal candidate. I mean, and is willing to do it. He even gave a very, very loose budget, and it sounds very low.
Somebody who's aware of, who's involved in Kiruv, not just an R&D team out there.
Tshuva that is a Harvard professor of psychology and has led research teams before very successfully. And he's willing to do it. And the claim is that he understands it. Obviously, he's got to meet with people. He's got to hear what it's like on the other side. What he quoted was he said that what he came up with was that if we're going to study 2 age groups, he said that every age group has to be done separately. 2 age groups, like students and young professionals, for example. His rough estimate was $800,000 for over 3 years, which is small money. Mamish small money. He gave me the basic outline. Now, it's not a finished price. There's no proposal yet. I asked him to write up a proposal. He said that his time is too precious. He won't do that unless he knows that the money's there. It doesn't have to be him. I'm not unilaterally doing this. If I had the money, I would. And I believe there is so much creativity from Aish people within Aish people, that are out there, whether they're still in the organization, weren't, but they're still They're part of the army. There are comrades at arms because they still believe in what we believe in. There's so much creativity. I'm not telling everyone to stop doing what they're doing. And yes, we have to invest. We have to set up, call it a department, call it a committee, call it whatever you want. But we have to. There have to be people that are really involved in this, are giving this serious time.
But I have a question. So the Rav's describing a very serious ishtadlos, a practical ishtadlos, similar to the way we would give an ishtadlos for parnasa. Do the research, what's working, and then not just spin our wheels. I posted a question on the side. The stories of Elayla Hakim, or Yitzias Mitzrayim, or Ezra, they're all miracle based. They're all like there was no Esha Torah saying, only the Chamushim are going to Olam Mitzrayim. You better get out, shape up. When Ezra, Mordechai and Esther, there was no Esha Torah in the time of Mordechai. There was a nace that all of a sudden, Kimu v'Kiblu. There was a nace that Elayla Hakim, that this person that.
One second. How did Yoshiel do it?
I don't know. He had a ruach. I don't know. Doesn't say.
Who said it was of course it was Siyata D'Shmaya. I'm sure he did whatever was appropriate for the time. He didn't just say, Elayla Hakim, and there he was, Superman, and he started flying around. I am sure he went and did whatever was available to him.
It feels like
wherever you're living, what's available to you.
It feels like
Yoshio was an Hiskio. You got everyone to learn. It wasn't a nest. Although they got Rishus to come back to Eretz Yisrael, still the nation was heavily intermarried. They set up a whole educational system. They worked with the people. It's much more complicated today. They're all over the place and they're so far gone. It's much more difficult. So we have to have an appropriate ishtadlis. But who says that it was always just Nas? Who says they didn't do things?
Yeah, but it feels like the two questions I have is it feels like they got at least started. Yeah, when they got started through like some type of mice and Nas, and I guess the other question that
the Sefer Torah was open to the page to the Amud of Arash Yakim. You're saying that unless we have something like that, it's not going to happen.
No, that's a smallness. The fact that Yoakim even had that, the fact that if I would show us, I cannot imagine a human being today that you show him a Sefer Torah that it coincidentally opens up to Ora Aish, and then all of a sudden they say Elayla Hakim. Okay, they're not a melech, but there just seems the historical precedence in Klai Sofa Kiruv seems to be based in Nace, but B, what bothers me in the back of my mind, like an itch, is that Lamaisa, even historically, Yoakim didn't work. Lamaisa, we're only 15 million Jews today after 3,000 years. Most of the Kiruv movements did not have a major impact on Klal Yisrael. Didn't seem like it.
They did not have a major. If you're talking about how long-lasting they were.
Right. My point is only that why make such a deep ishtalos and research? Maybe we should just be going meshuggah. Like you think about the Mekarvim from the 50s and 60s, they went banging on doors and they were meshuggah. They just went nuts because they just cared.
But that's on the contrary. That's not. But that only works small scale. I don't think that's a legitimate ishtadlis in this day. I'll go further. The world has changed. Let me give you maybe a different mashal. The ribua of tefillin a few generations ago. The kind of the tefillin that all good people wore. If you bring that today to a rav with a shaila, he'd probably say this has to be redone. It's not meruba. Today they sit there with calipers and the more sophisticated ones with micrometers. The world has changed. We have much more at our disposal, and therefore we have a different kind of chiyuv. There are those who taina that the halacha, that all measurements in halacha are al yidei hashara, was only for the days that they lacked the technology to get precise measurements for everything. And that today it really is not according to your hashara. There are many that hold that. Certainly in every other area of ruchnius. we've learned that I'll go even further. Lumdis. We're not bigger Talmidei Chacham than our ancestors. Lumdis is so more sophisticated. It was grabbed from the Grotter of Chaim Brisker to the Rosh Yeshiva. It's so much more sophisticated. There's a sophistication. We have to learn the way the world thinks. If science has made advances, then we have to make sure that our learning is at least on that level. Of course, plus. And the same goes for our Hishtadlis in bringing Kvod Shamayim, in changing Klal Yisrael. If the world has discovered ways of doing things that are effective. In all the world, education is research-based. We're the only ones that don't do it. Certainly, if you're talking about something of this scale, I mean, our Chiyuv Hishtadlis, living in this century, we don't live in log cabins. In this century, the fact that Hashem has given us a certain level of sophistication requires us to make use of it. Otherwise, we're being amateur. We're not doing a legitimate Hishtadlis. Okay, that's.
I appreciate it very much. I'll tell you just personally, I pumped to learn this sugya this morning with Revu of Tefillin versus conference of Tzitz. So it's very meaningful. I understand what you're saying.
Rabbi, could I give pushback on research for a second?
Yeah.
David Rosenthal here. I definitely, my initial reaction is I love the idea, but on the other hand, there's this new concept out there of with a product. It used to be that you make a product, you'd spend a lot of time researching, building this amazingly perfect product, and then you get it out there. And that was the old way of doing things. And the new way is you get out the product as quickly as possibly can, and based upon how the users use it, you do a new iteration of the product. Within 6 weeks, you've got a new product out there, and so that you're essentially building the product based upon feedback from the users. So it's almost the exact opposite of doing lots and lots of research. It's
not the exact. I don't want to cut you off, but it's not the opposite. As far as I understood, the kind of research in something like this is that it's a 3-year research project, which includes working with the ideas from the very beginning, trying them out, doing research about the past, and experimenting with new things. The second year, you hopefully will have solidified what you're doing, and the third year, you're fine-tuning it. If you think that it should be cut down for less time, perhaps. But the whole idea is that the research is going on as you're developing the product. It is not a research thing where for 3 years we're just going to be doing academic work, and at the end of the 3 years we do have a product, which sounds like what you're describing. It's something that is worked with. You're doing your research as you're building your product.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. This seems to be the way the experts do things today. Okay.
Okay, right, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Listen, this is the beginning.
Thank you very much.
This is the beginning.